Today on Rescue USA, a tornado rips right through a small community, bringing greater damage in the aftermath.
It's just carnage. There's cars that had been lifted and dropped. There was buildings collapsed.
Then, an early morning fire threatens an iconic structure.
There was huge flames still coming out of the peak of the steeple.
We had fire coming up through the roof already.
Our church was being destroyed, like right in front of my eyes.
There were heroic efforts given to try and save parts of this structure.
Hurricane Florence is one of the most destructive storms in recent history, submerging parts of North Carolina in more rain than that state had ever seen from a tropical cyclone. Millions of Americans were impacted by those floods, and so many more were left without power. But as Hurricane Florence moved north, a new threat was lurking.
Founded more than 300 years ago as the first commercial producer of coal in the United States, Midlothian, Virginia is steamed in history. Throughout that history, severe weather has come and gone. However, Tammy Harrop, who has lived in Midlothian for decades, recalls that it had been a while since a tornado touched down in her town.
I grew up right here off of Hull Street. I've lived here my whole entire life. The last tornado that I remember, I think it was like in the 90s.
Despite the tornado warnings issued by the National Weather Service, Tammy and Jordan, co-workers at a local pizza parlor, were unaware of what was coming.
I was here at the restaurant. It was kind of a slow in between lunch and dinner time.
It was raining so hard, and the sky was dark. The rain was pretty much sideways. It wasn't going right down, it was just sideways.
We had gotten several alerts that day that kept saying, danger, take shelter immediately. You're looking, nothing's happening. So at this point, I kind of wasn't paying attention to them anymore, to be honest with you.
Directly across from the pizza parlor, Wilma St. John was busy spending the afternoon taking inventory at her furniture store when the weather alerts became more alarming.
My husband was looking out that front door, and he said they had a different kind of an alert that made him perk up. It was like severe tornado warning.
People in Midlothian tell us they could feel the weather turning. First responders were keeping a close eye on the warnings, preparing for the atmosphere to turn violent.
We had received a number of reports indicating that there was increased winds, and with that also we had a number of tornado watches and warnings that were popping up over the course of the day.
As the first responders were gearing up, the operators in the emergency call center were also on high alert.
I was answering phones, and we had gotten some weather alerts in here, and then I actually took a phone call for someone that saw what appeared to be a funnel cloud, and that's when it started.
Yes, ma'am. You've got a funnel cloud headed towards the shopping center here at Hall Street on Park Road.
The looming funnel clouds over Midlothian that day were transforming into dangerous tornadoes. Tornadoes, of course, are rapidly rotating columns of air that make contact with the ground. These potentially fatal vortices generally develop from a type of thunderstorm known as a supercell. What you may not know is that tornadoes can come from hurricanes. The outer bands of tropical storms and hurricanes rotate onto land with thunderstorms, and in those thunderstorms, they can generate enough lift and spin to form supercells. During Hurricane Florence, the surface wind had slowed, but the winds higher in the atmosphere were cruising. This caused wind shear, a critical ingredient in making tornadoes.
My husband, he saw it coming through the front door. He said, "Come look at this." And we were staring at it. It was like dark clouds, and you can sort of see it, you know, in a circular motion. But what really got me is when I saw the debris in the air. And he said, "Get in the truck." And I said, like, "Where are we going?" He said, "Get in the truck." He started driving west, and we missed it.
Violent tornadoes can level almost any home, so the safest place to be during a tornado is underground. If there is no basement or storm cellar available, an inner hallway or closet can offer protection. Flying debris is the greatest danger during tornadoes.
Back at the pizza parlor, as the winds outside were picking up, customers were getting nervous.
They walked out the front door, walked to the edge of the sidewalk, and they almost immediately came flying back in.
They said that they saw trash flying in the air, but then they took a second look, realized, oh, it's actually a tornado. We saw them run around the corner, and they were like, this isn't a joke, we have to go. And he started running to the bathroom, but I told him, you know, hey, we shouldn't go in the bathroom. That's not the safest place we could be. The back hallway is nothing but cement, so the safest place for us to be is in that cement hallway.
Moments after Wilma St. John and her husband escaped, the tornado ripped through the shopping center. The people in the pizza parlor took refuge in the hallway, hoping it was enough to keep them safe.
And I was like screaming, like, hey, come on, this could get really bad. You could feel the whole building shaking, and I knew something was wrong at that moment in time. It was crazy. You could just feel how powerful it was.
Just like that, the lights went out, and then it just got quiet as a mouse. And you're just looking at each other like, what happened?
As people inside the shopping center were taking cover, the first responders were being dispatched to areas with downed power lines to make sure everyone in Midlothian was secure. Leaving a 9-mile path of destruction on September 17, 2018, an EF2 tornado tore right through the small community of Midlothian, Virginia. The people that survived were grateful to be alive, but unaware that a new threat was right on its heels. A natural gas leak caused by the tornado could create further catastrophe if not stopped.
We set our command post up in the Victorian Square Shopping Center, and officers just started coming from everywhere because at that point we had to isolate that area so that we could get resources in.
We gotta get out now, he said.
Yeah, close it down. It's not good, something's gonna blow up. It doesn't smell right. I was just terrified.
A severed power line or a small spark from a vehicle could set the area immediately ablaze.
We knew that we had a very significant gas leak. What we couldn't do was to gain access to the regulator to shut the gas off to the building.
Gas leaks can turn lethal in seconds.
The hazard in that particular parking lot were the overturned cars. It starts to leak gas or other fluids, or if it should catch on fire, because as they're being rolled over, you can generate sparks.
First responders and local utility companies were able to get the gas leak under control before it caused a second tragedy.
They were here quick. They were very calm, controlled the situation. They handled the situation very well.
Getting the leak contained without injury or damage took quick thinking and a safe and hasty response. Now that it was safe to go back to the shopping center, the owners and employees of the stores were anxious to survey the damage, especially Wilma St. John, who had escaped moments before the twister hit.
I could not believe it was our building. It was flat to the ground. The roof is on the floor, like, it was just awful. I had no idea it could do so much damage. The brick walls, the concrete walls, just totally gone. The concrete blocks, the whole wall just laid flat over. It blew the front door out, and it blew it all the way out to the back of the building.
We had very minimal damage. There was a little damage to some of the patio stuff outside. There was some roof damage. We had to replace air conditioner units.
The people of Midlothian lost a lot the day of the tornado, but they came away rich in gratitude for Charles, Doug, and Michael, and the other first responders who put their lives on the line to protect their neighbors.
They are heroes to come out not knowing what the condition of the building is, glass everywhere. It takes a lot of courage to do what they do.
These people selflessly run in and put themselves in harm's way at our benefit.
People that serve for a reason and serve for a purpose. That is a higher calling for us to be able to help our fellow community members.
I like brotherhood, and there's no greater brotherhood on the planet than the fire service.
I will not ignore any more tornado warnings, for sure.
After a tornado forever changed the lives of those who survived in Midlothian, they've embraced their new normal, rebuilding and grateful. Their spirit stronger than ever.
Visually inspired by Noah's Ark, the Vancouver United Church of Christ in Washington State had an unmistakably unique design. With its mast-like spire and arching roofline, it was a landmark known to everyone. In the early morning hours of May 25, 2016, this iconic building went up in flames, but the spirit of the community could not be swayed.
Meriwether Lewis from the Lewis and Clark expedition likened Vancouver, Washington to be the only desirable location for a settlement west of the Rockies. Today, it's the sense of community that unites the locals. A blend of new construction and historic architecture, Vancouver offers the amenities of a large city, but with the charm and hospitality of a small town.
I grew up in Minnesota, and my wife and I moved out here to Vancouver and immediately started attending this church.
When you come here, you can't stand in a corner somewhere without somebody giving you hugs. Probably at least 30 hugs in a Sunday morning. And the people are amazing.
When I first arrived, I was just really impressed with the community. It just seemed like they really cared for each other.
However, catastrophe hit this tight-knit congregation when a fire broke out in the middle of the night in their uniquely designed church.
It came in as a routine fire alarm. When they arrived, we had fire coming up through the roof already, I believe.
Word of the church fire spread just about as fast as the fire itself.
Early that morning, we had a phone call from my parents that the church was on fire. And so we threw some clothes on and got in the car and drove over because we were about 5 minutes away. And we were here as we watched the cross just burn. There was flames all around our cross on the steeple. And it's a cross that can be seen for miles and miles.
Fire crews planned their attack while clearing the building, then immediately began battling that aggressive blaze.
Well, what we wanted to do was get on all sides of the fire and control it. The first crew pulled a line to the back before the other units arrived, and they hit what fire they could find over on the west side, and they couldn't do anything more until more units arrived on scene.
Crowds gathered, faces glowing in the reflection as they watched their beloved church burn.
There was huge flames still coming out of the peak of the steeple. The steeple really acted like a chimney for the fire, so the flames and the smoke just were drawn up, and it was really hot up there. The firefighters were working really hard to put that out. There were people as close as we could get, behind barriers, pressed up against, watching, weeping.
Because of the uniqueness of the structure and the 105-foot-tall wooden steeple, the fire just kept burning well into the early morning hours.
It actually burned for a long time because the steeple was so tall. It was really hard for them to get enough water up there to get the fire out. Our church was being destroyed, like right in front of my eyes.
Thankfully, not all heroes wear capes. Some have really tall machinery. A local utility company was able to lend a valuable piece of equipment that could help get the fire under control.
Divine intervention, some might say, that we were able to get that unique piece of equipment that allowed us to go up and finish a job.
There were heroic efforts given to try and save parts of this structure. Firemen put their lives at risk. They were concerned about the roof falling in on them, and yet there was no hesitation. They went in to do what they could to save this church.
The crews went up there with a hose line as well as tools, including chainsaws, to open up the siding and access the fire.
Despite all of their efforts, the church suffered significant damage.
My first reaction was kind of like disbelief. Just the magnitude of the damage was really hard to come to grips with.
This church was designed originally to be reminiscent of Noah's Ark. So it's very, very distinctive in our community. It was a sad loss. It was hard to see these folks and the loss that they were feeling.
With their sanctuary in ruins and the congregation heartbroken, many wondered how they'd be able to overcome this tragedy. After responding to a 2-alarm fire at a neighborhood church, the Clark County Fire Department in Vancouver, Washington, unfortunately could not save the landmark structure.
When I walked into the building, the first thing I thought about was all the people who had been baptized here, all the people who had been married here. And so I knew that this was really an important, special place for a lot of people.
As the damage of the tragic fire was sinking in, members of the congregation were eager to get started on the next chapter in the life of the church, so they devised a plan to make it better.
The church got together and decided that instead of just building back to the way the building was, we really wanted to reimagine the space and really rethink the building and what it meant and what it would look like.
Noah's Ark, everybody talks about how they were going to put another roof on this thing because it's rounded and it's very hard to do that.
The unique shape of the structure made it challenging.
Every glulam, every beam, every member of this is individually cut. The beams had to be rounded on both ends. Every board had to be laced in and bent. So there was a lot of custom materials that go in that you don't see that build the backbone and structure of this church.
We were really partners because we were working really closely together. We were able to check in with each other constantly about the progress of the job. We really became very good friends.
After an extensive reconstruction, the moment the congregation had been waiting for, the church was finally ready to be reopened.
It's been 2.5 years of really hard work, and there's been a flurry of activity to get to this point today. It's a relief and just a joy to be back in this space.
The congregation gathered together for a dedication ceremony to express their gratitude to the local firefighting agencies and the reconstruction team for all their hard work.
I'm so grateful that the firefighters are able to be at the ribbon cutting ceremony and the rebuilding dedication. I mean, if it wasn't for their skill and the specialized training that they had, we would never have been able to fight this fire.
The pastor, Jennifer, grinning from ear to ear the entire day, and it was so neat to see her and watch her reaction and just see the whole community come together and everyone say, it's finally here.
The community and congregation were back where they wanted to be, together. Sheldon Yellen took the opportunity to express appreciation for the heroics of the first responders.
There are heroes among us in our communities, and these first responders that I referred to in all of your departments, thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
I expected it to feel like the end of something, like, oh, this is it, we've completed this project, end of chapter, but really it just felt like the next step to me.
We took this very terrible event and made the best of it and have come out with just a beautiful, beautiful place.
Thanks to the courage and gratitude of those affected, an important local icon, the Vancouver United Church of Christ, was reconstructed and restored back to its original purpose, providing the people that live there with a sense of community that they'd feared they'd lost.
Today, we honor the quick thinking of first responders that, in these cases, undoubtedly saved lives. In Midlothian, Virginia, the heroes had to make life-saving decisions in just seconds after a tornado. And in Vancouver, Washington, a congregation will forever give thanks to first responders for giving them back their place of worship.